Welcome to the Black Box of Media brought to you by Ultimate Edge Communications. I'm your host, Aleisha McCall, and this is episode 10. This podcast lifts the lid on the hidden strategies behind high-performance media advertising. If you've ever wondered why some campaigns absolutely crush results and others fall flat, this is where we break it all down. In this episode, we are joined by Gavin Bell, General Manager of Marketing at Wesfarmers Health MediAesthetics division, where he's uniting three legacy brands, Australian Skin Clinics, Clear Skincare, and Silk's Laser Clinics, and driving growth in a fast-moving aesthetic space. Gavin is known for balancing creative ambition with commercial focus. He's passionate about bold ideas, purposeful brands, and building cultures where people love what they do. Having worked with Gavin, I know this all to be true, and I'm very excited to have him on the episode today. With an overlapping service offering and a fiercely competitive market, one of Gavin's biggest challenges is really clear. How do you differentiate three brands with similar value propositions to build distinctive positioning and still capture market share? So, ladies and gentlemen, this episode is your front row seat to how Australia's leading skin and laser clinics are winning the fight for market share. So I'm really excited to get into this with Gavin. And Gavin, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Aleisha. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Fantastic. Well, look, I'm really excited for what our listeners are going to get out of this episode today, Gavin. We've covered so many, subjects in and around the performance space, obviously what's happening in AI, full funnel marketing, but I'm really excited to get your perspective with just such a unique environment, a huge challenge across those three brands, and then really understanding, how you're driving results in this space. So very much looking forward to getting into these questions. As always, we've got loads to cover, so we're going to dive straight into the thick of it.
Let's do it.
Awesome. So first question for you, Gavin, is when managing these three brands with similar offerings, how do you actually differentiate without cannibalizing the market share? It feels like it would be quite a tough balance with three, yes, different brands, but obviously very similar, if not the same service offering. So how are you managing that?
Yeah, well, to be honest with you, they have exactly the same service offering as well. And if you think about the category and where we operate, which is in the sort of the multi-site location chain brand, skin, laser, and aesthetic clinics, like everyone's pretty much offering the same treatments and using the same technology to deliver those treatments. So I think for us, we're actually not chasing differentiation. What we're chasing is distinctiveness from a brand perspective. And I think that's the sort of the key difference. As controversial as that may be, it's very much a sort of a Byron Sharp way of thinking, which is focusing on that distinctiveness so that you can kind of stand out. And I guess in that, focusing on brand as well. So distinctiveness and brands, very much those two things hand in hand is kind of what we're chasing for our businesses.
Yeah, awesome. And when you think about that piece, what sort of frameworks or tools do you use to keep that distinctiveness or that positioning really sharp and consistent, especially when it comes down to your campaigns? Because at a high level, I'm sure it's like, okay, we're clear on this, but when you get into the activation of it all, how do you sort of stay true to that?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And one of the things that I guess I recognized when I first started working in this business and category 5 years ago, and it's been a journey to get here and to get the various businesses to buy into this. But it's actually to focus on brand and build out brand platforms,
Mhm.
and using those brand platforms as your framework essentially to create that difference. And we're there now, and we started with Clear Skincare, and then we use that as a I guess a basis or a foundation
Mhm.
then to apply that same thinking to Silk and Australian Skin Clinics. And we've actually just been on since February this year on the journey of actually developing what those brand platforms are. And the process that we went through is using the sort of classic 4Cs really.
Mhm.
So looking at the insights around your category, then looking at the insights around culture, and then looking at, the specific insights that pertain to each of the brands through their customer, and then also the company. So those are your sort of 4 Cs. And that's the framework that we used with our creative agency. And I think the big question that they that they came to us and sort of said, what we need to look for is, in a sea of sameness. And, look, if I think about like our brands actually share exactly the same purpose, which is to help people look and feel good from the inside out.
Hmm.
And
I like
that's
that.
essentially, it's about confidence, right? The confidence is not ownable. You could, that purpose, all our competitors could say exactly the same thing.
Hmm.
L'Oreal can say exactly the same thing,
Yeah.
So confidence is not unique and confidence isn't ownable.
Yeah.
So it was less about the what, but it's the how. So
Hmm.
how do each of these brands actually help people to look and feel good from the inside out?
Yeah.
And it's the how which we then use as the basis to that was the lens that we looked at in then looking at the 4 Cs, and then from the 4 Cs landing on the brand platform for each. And the brand platform then is um the the thing that we then really center everything on for each of those businesses to kind of help find that distinctiveness out in the market.
Yeah, that's awesome. There's some gold nuggets in there, Gav. I guess when I look at that, that totally makes sense from a framework and from a top line point of view. Having obviously the role of really being the custodian of the brand and the direction that you just spoke about, and then really seeing that come to life through the funnel. How do you make sure that that is consistent and the team really drives that forward? Because a lot of the conversations I've had with marketing managers is, hey, I've got this, great plan at the top. It's really clear. I think my team are clear on it, but how do I actually make sure that I have that consistency through the full funnel to really bring it full circle? Have you got any, gold nuggets that you can share with us on that?
I don't know. Look, I'm a very creative person,
Yeah.
and I still very much hands on with the work. So I look at everything from if it's EDMs going out, or
Hmm.
if it's like performance ads, all the way up to our out of home radio and our TV ads. So I'm kind of across everything, and I'm always getting the team to always come back to to the platform idea
Hmm.
and the essence of it. I think the other thing is obviously, with when building out brand toolkits, think of it as a toolkit rather than a guidelines, and
Hmm.
keep it like few elements that you do consistently well and brilliantly well. And tone of voice is really essential to that.
Hmm.
And with the brand platforms, they're essentially in old advertising money, they're taglines. But I think a modern day line has layers to it and is action orientated and has got real depth. So um, the three that we have for each of our brands, it's important that they in themselves have something about them that's
Hmm.
special, and language which is that you can latch onto and really kind of proliferate through all your
Yeah.
creative, and that starts to hang everything together. So if I give you an example, so we've just
Yeah.
launched the Australian Skin Clinics brand platform, which is every bit beautiful.
Hmm.
Um, and the Australian Skin Clinics brand, where we landed in terms of a positioning is it's all about having a healthy attitude to beauty. So every bit beautiful, and then the every bit beautiful kind of taps into that, but also taps into this idea that the wide service offering. So it's every bit of you that we can help make beautiful. So within that you've got three very great words that we use in all our copy: every bit and beautiful.
Hmm.
So it's just kind of reusing the language from your platform and use that in everything and permeate that and play with it, and everything starts to hang together. Same with Clear Skincare. So Clear Skincare's, positioning is all around self-care, and its line is for the love of me. And you can kind of see where, for the love of ...
Yeah.
Every
And
bit
I think that's really, sorry to interrupt, Gavin, I really think it's quite interesting because in a time where we feel like maybe language is being undervalued with the adoption of AI, with the AI slop, that we're seeing out in some, seeing out on websites, seeing out on ads, seeing out on
yeah.
social media right now. It's a really interesting point to come back full circle to really, what you're saying is to really reinforce the importance of each word, the importance of the language, the way that you can elevate people, emotions,
Yeah.
connection. And I actually think it's a really beautiful point because in the way in which everybody is moving and where we're going now, we really have to bring back, and I've talked a lot about with the use of AI is really not, yes, use it, but don't lose that human burstiness. Don't use the
Yeah.
value
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
what it generates. So I actually really love that. And I think marketers can take that away because if you can go back to exactly what you're saying of what does each word mean? What are we actually trying? What's the experience? What's the feeling that we are trying to create through this language, realizing how powerful it is? Something really nice in that.
Yeah. And I think for me, AI can really help you in this because it's
Yeah.
about the input, right? And it's about the parameters that you're using with AI. So,
Yeah.
what I'm seeing a lot of out there is copywriting
Mhm.
AIs and copy GPTs,
Yeah.
and actually, if your tone of voice is really tight and your platform and your line is really tight, then actually AI is going to really help you
Yeah.
hone that even more, craft that even more, and really do that sort of proliferation of copy that's kind of so rooted in your brand,
Yeah.
so much better and quicker. But you're right, there is lot of slop out there, and a lot of that slop is because it's not given the tight
Yeah.
parameters.
And I think you're right. Those guardrails that your parameters that you put in, and we've been talking a lot about this, is if you nail your brand guidelines, if you nail your tone of voice, if you nail the language in which you want to use, and you're crystal clear on the outcome or the feeling that you're trying to give that final consumer, whatever framework or whatever methodology you use, that's where you're going to get the full leverage of AI, and that's where you're going to get the scalability. But I
Yeah,
think I think we can both agree if you're putting in, it's like a brief, garbage in, garbage out, right? It's no
yeah,
different in this environment. So I think there's some really good nuggets in there. Now, Gav, I want to move over to brand performance. So when you think about performance across the three brands that you're working on, what does that really mean to you just beyond revenue? So if we think about, and I know you've always been a real custodian of this, of, how do I drive brand performance? How do I measure brand performance? Can you share with us a little bit about how you do that just beyond a revenue metric?
yeah. So, I mean, we've got a consistent methodology across all of our Wesfarmers Health brands. So whether it's Priceline or Atomica or Instant Scripts
Yep.
or our brands, and it's market NPS.
Hmm.
That's kind of like our key brand metric. So what that
And
is,
how do you measure that? And what
yeah.
is that, first of all?
So first of all, what market NPS is different to a traditional transactional NPS. So
Mhm.
transactional, we call it transactional NPS. So I've been into a clinic, I've had a treatment, I've left the clinic. We send you your questionnaire. We ask you to obviously, give us your score.
Mhm.
So that's based on your experience. And got incredible scores when it comes to transactional NPS. Market NPS takes a whole of market view. So it takes
Mhm.
everyone in your category, and it basically asks the same question of people who are aware of your brand, but not necessarily users. They could be users of your brand,
Okay.
but they may not be users of your brand. So
Yeah.
it's essentially understanding the health of your brand at a market level,
Mhm.
based on that classic NPS sort of rating.
Awesome. And then how do you sort of take that, this is sort of a two-pronged question. How do you take that, learning, insight, reality, and then go, right, these are the optimizations, these are the changes that we need to make from our media advertising approach to start to get to wherever you want to go there? What are sort of the considerations or maybe the decisions that you make based on that to go, right, this is now what we need to do from a media advertising standpoint?
Yeah. So I mean the thing about the market NP, so it's a quarterly dip.
Hmm.
And it goes out to I think a couple of thousand women across the country every quarter. So it's a lag review. It's not like a leading kind of thing.
Yeah.
And we use it to, and the other thing that it goes deep on, because it is, you've got the NPS part, but we're actually asking a lot of consideration based questions as well.
Yeah.
So we're kind of really continually reinforcing and understanding what are the key motivations and the key drivers of choice,
Hmm.
and of consideration. And then that just kind of filters into kind of our comms and our briefing and our creative
Yeah.
approach and strategy. I mean, it's fairly consistent every
Yeah.
quarter. So, um, it's nothing's new news, but it just keeps reinforcing what we need to focus on.
Yeah.
Um, but I guess one of the things that we understand is uh, as you move through the funnel, um, the NPS score radically improves.
Mhm.
So it tells us that we need to continue focusing on the top of the funnel and building connection at an awareness and consideration layer, which is kind of reinforcing what my gut has been telling me for so long.
Yeah,
Um, and so it's good to have the evidence to back that up.
yeah.
But
I
that's sort of how we're using it and what it's been telling us.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting because I mean, it's a great position to be in, right? Where you go, okay, it gets better as you move through the funnel. I don't know if all brands can say, that that's the case. So, and we've often, and I mean, you and I have discussed this over the years, is when you get that bottom of the funnel right and you get those rights, you know that you're, delivering good conversion, but you also know you're delivering a good experience. The confidence that you can then have as a marketer to go up to the top of the funnel and go, right, now we really just need to get this brand proposition and this value and this reach nailed. And if we do that, we can securely and confidently know that we're going to drive people through the funnel properly.
That's
I think
right.
that's a great, a great position.
Yeah, we're fortunate. We're a high touch category, so you obviously come in and you've got people touching your face and
Yeah,
things like that. So
it's
and
intimate.
it's intimate. It's
Yeah,
intimate. Very intimate when it comes to bikini laser hair removal, for example.
yeah, absolutely.
And so the service has got to be key. And I think the other thing in our favor is our business model. So we've actually got three kind of business models where we've got traditional franchise where the clinic is essentially 100% owned by a franchise partner
Mhm.
and they're obviously buying into the franchise offer. Then we've got joint venture where we own part of the business and then we have a clinic manager or a nurse or someone like that who owns, a portion of the business. And then we've got the traditional corporate model
Yeah.
where the clinics are wholly owned by us as a corporate entity. But where you've got the skin in the game with the franchise partner and the service level is excellent. And that's why we've got, such a high, NPS rating at a transactional level. So for me, I have that confidence and I know that if I'm driving volume at scale and driving like mass incremental reach, then I'm going to be, I'm going to be getting people in for a good service at the end of the day.
That's it. And I think there's a great another nugget in there, Gavin, just around when you align vested interests and the way that those vested interests are aligned with JVs and franchisees, that's where you can start to create some magic. Because, I mean, we can all agree with anything in life, whether it's business, life, whatever, when everyone's got skin in the game, the result is always going to be so much better. So I think that's an awesome insight. Now, I want to move over to creative impact on performance. There's so much conversation going on around this space at the moment. Obviously, from a media advertising point of view, the algorithm is controlling 90% of the way in which the creative gets to market. There is a gatekeeper now with the algorithm saying you're only going to get past me if you reach these relevancy scores and these creative scores. And then you're seeing brands that have very few followers going viral overnight because they have maybe one great piece of
Yeah.
content. So there's so much moving in around this space. But what I really wanted to touch on with you on is what are the creative elements that you believe are consistently making the biggest difference? What is it? The hooks? Is it the format? Is it the messaging? Is it the emotional storytelling? Is it a combination? Like, what is it that you're seeing, especially in 2025, really working for you? And
Yeah.
maybe as well, what's not working? What are the things that you're staying away from?
Yeah. I mean, and it's different at the different parts of the funnel, right?
Mhm.
So I'm quite a simple person and I break our funnel down into three very simple parts. So I don't know if you've heard of the margarita model where,
The
you know,
margarita model.
the margarita model
I
is
like it. Sounds good.
just two ingredients to a great pizza, right?
Yep.
And it's basically you've got those that are, future demand, those that are
Yep.
not in the market now, but ready to buy at some point in the future. And then you've got existing demand. And so those are your two core audiences and you've got two core ingredients to focus on each of those. So big
That
brand
makes
building
sense. Yep.
stuff to drive kind of, drive awareness and preference, I guess, at a top and emotional connection. And
Yep.
then at the bottom of the funnel, then you've got essentially the things that are converting in your category. So for us, it's value, price,
Yep.
location, things like that.
Bef-
And then I guess you do have the messy middle. And for me, that's like the third ingredient on a good,
That's the
that's
affinity loop of exploration, evaluation, exploration,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
evaluation.
yeah.
Yep.
So in the pizza, it's like there's the bit of basil on top,
Yeah.
So For us, we're a high consideration category as well.
Hmm.
And that's where like Meta and TikTok and social plays a massive part for us.
Hmm.
Um, And so the thing that's consistent, like what that we're finding is working incredibly well.
Hmm.
Particularly there is you're saying content is easy, but it's actually specifically it's user generated content
Yeah.
and now even more so EGC, employee generated content. And we're fortunate in that, from a creator perspective, we've got something of real value that people want, which are treatments. And
Yeah.
so we
And the
generate
result of those treatments, right? Like they
the
want the outcome of
results.
those.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And just the advocacy that comes from it. And that's kind of the key part to our middle funnel is that advocacy.
Yeah.
And seeing the treatments in action, and seeing the results. And then the employee generated content. I mean, it's just loads of fun. It just shows, what it's like and what the
Yeah.
girls are like in the clinic. And we're finding that those two bits of content are actually driving our best results. We still have, a lot of price led, um, comms and we were focusing a lot on that because it was driving, but we're seeing CPAs just like, as everyone was, CPAs just kept going up. So as soon as we started playing much more in the middle of the funnel on Meta and top of funnel with that content, we saw those CPAs come down.
Yeah, awesome. And Gavin, how are you amplifying some of that user generated content and employee generated content? What's your sort of approach to going, right, this is being created fantastic. How as a brand can we amplify that?
We just put it into our paid. It's the core creative that we're using in our paid activity now. So it's organically comes up,
Yeah.
and then
But do you use that like opportunistically? Like, for example, you might be planned 3 months in advance and it's like, right, this is the user generated content that we're going to use. However, if something pops or something goes viral in that week or in the moment, is that something that you'll then throw in and go, right,
right,
let's pump
absolutely.
this one. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
It goes straight in. Like it will
Yeah.
take us about a week to turn it around. We've got a
Yeah.
team member who specifically that's her role is we've got two people actually. We've got someone who's out there kind of creating those relationships, behind the scenes with the creators, and then another team member who's basically then just, securing those assets and then turning them around, and then we're putting them into our paid activity straight away. We're testing it, and if it's
Yeah.
flying, then we put more behind it, and then if it's not quite hitting the mark, then we switch it out for something else. We're
Yeah.
pretty agile like that.
I
And
think
it's
that's
been a
key.
journey to get there,
Yeah.
to find that agility, but we're finding that now we've got it humming. It's working really
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. And I think when you find something like that you know you can really lean into, it just becomes a top priority. It becomes the 20% items that get 80% of the result. And it's like, we just got to make this a priority. We've got to make this happen
Yeah.
because it's that important. I
Yeah.
know the CMO of Mecca was saying something similar just last week at the ADMA event, just really around how important that community and that user generated content piece is, obviously with their Mecca Loop, beauty
Yeah.
customers and everything that they've created there. But really the magic was in the amplification of all of these customers just creating their experiences, doing their trials, doing their makeup lessons and that kind of thing, and it just becoming a beast of its own. And now they're fully supporting it, like you, with the resources that it requires,
Yeah.
especially in this beauty and cosmetic space,
Yeah.
because there's just so much energy around not only the treatment but also the outcome and the result that
Yeah.
you receive.
I
So
mean, I
that's
talk
awesome.
about Meta being hungry, right? It's
Yeah,
just hungry for creative now, and you just got to keep, feeding it more and more and more. And as a traditional brand marketer, it's hard because it's like, is that perfectly on brand, and is it, the
yeah,
way I would do it? No, but you've
yeah,
kind of just got to, lean into the fact that what's right for the platform is right for the platform.
yeah.
And you just got to get a little bit more relaxed about some of those brand bits. And as long as it's hitting, again, that's sort of, what the brand is all about, and it's the kind of the broad principles of the platform idea,
Yeah.
go for it.
Absolutely. And that's the thing, is with the way the algorithms are working now, and just to your point, the sheer demand for not only creative, but a platform first approach for each of especially the social media
Yeah.
platforms that you're on, there really isn't any time to kind of sit back and reflect. It's like, look, let's get this out there. Let's get it tested. Let's figure out what's working and what's not. And then we get to your point, like what you said, you get to that sort of, ideal zone where you go, right, now we've got a model, now we've got something that we can invest in, and then everyone can get behind it. So I
Yeah.
think that's definitely going to be continuing to evolve. Now, when you think about a campaign where maybe a simple creative optimization might have dramatically changed performance, have you sort of seen anything specific around sort of like a before and after impact where you go, wow, okay, that creative optimization specifically, you know, worked, was magic?
I guess the example is not necessarily a creative optimization, but more of a funnel optimization,
Hmm.
where, you know, which combined creative and having the right creative, which was particularly on Meta, was shifting investment further up the funnel,
Hmm.
um, on a more always on basis. So, driving that sort of reach with the right kind of creative at the top of the funnel. And
Hmm.
then again, we've got then middle of the funnel traffic campaigns as well, again, with the right type of content. So that then the bottom of the funnel activity, which we do measure on CPA,
Hmm.
we once we started getting that structure right and getting the right level of investment right through the funnel, we saw those CPAs coming down and coming down fast, particularly when we move into major promotional periods. So, we've kind of found that our magic sauce is to, particularly from an above the line perspective, is we do our brand activity in a period, in a window immediately before a major sale. So we're
Hmm.
priming the audience kind of immediately before, and then we see the kind of that sale is both customer volume and cash sales like dramatically increase during those sales. And so
Now,
with Meta, it's then taking a slightly more always on approach, but then making sure that we've got enough investment in between those major promotions.
no, that's fantastic because I think that is definitely a common thread, and certainly what we're seeing in the landscape is over the last, especially 12 to 18 months. And you look at that, to use a similar metaphor to you, it's that moving parade, right? So only 3% of people are in the market on average to buy from you at any given time, and people are coming in and out. That moving parade is always changing.
Yeah.
So you have to really, when you are looking, and especially as a large commodity brand like yourself, you really have to make sure that you've got that awareness and consideration layer because people are so regularly coming in and out of the funnel.
Well, exactly. So, a lot of our a lot of our treatments are bought in packages, so 3 and 6 packs. If you think about that, people are coming in and out on a cycle of kind of 3 treatments, and say if it's laser hair removal, which is probably our most commoditized category,
Yep.
if they're buying a 3 pack, and then it's an 18-week turnaround. So because it's
Sure.
6 weeks between every treatment, so we know that that's every 18 weeks we've got to reacquire.
Absolutely. No, I think that's a great point. Now, I want to move into sort of how you're thinking about using AI. Obviously, it's the buzzword. Pivot was
Yeah.
COVID buzzword. Now this is, AI is now the new buzzword. There's so much talk going on in this space, and I've been working quite closely with brands just around really understanding. Well, how can it be leveraged with one of the biggest bottlenecks in the business, which is often creative production?
Yeah.
The statistics from Adobe show that only 10% of creative is reused. So that's a huge investment in creative production, creative campaigns that just do not get reused. So when you think about how in this specifically in the creative space and the demand that the platforms, to your point, like they're just asking for more creative, asking for a platform first approach. How are you thinking about, using AI in that space, using data asset management platforms to scale creative variety, how you can look at, yes, we're going to do our big brand campaigns, we're going to invest in our imagery, invest in our moments, but then how can we use AI for the bottom of the funnel to then really get scale and leverage beyond what you've been able to achieve up till now.
Yeah.
So I'm really keen, Gavin, to understand what's on your mind right now. Like what's keeping you up at night
Yeah.
here? What are you thinking
I mean,
about?
more than what's on my mind is actually on my agenda. So
Hmm.
we've got big plans for this year to do exactly as you said, is to look at how we use AI on a lot of that low value
Hmm.
creative proliferation, basically down at the bottom of the funnel. We have some, we're using some things already just to kind of like, all our price-based comms gets, we upload a spreadsheet, and then, everything gets produced and comes out the other end. And, we've got a very smart designer working on stuff like that. But
Hmm.
the next level is then how do you use AI to basically put the whole thing together?
Yep.
Particularly, because we need so much more creative than we've ever needed before. I've seen some really great examples out there. And yeah, and so that's kind of key. That's how I sort of see it. Copy GPTs, other things like
Yep.
that. We send a lot of emails, so it's like, how can we feed it into emails? And I've seen some really clever stuff coming up through around how AI can help with kind of with your CRM and your trigger comms and behaviors and automatically producing creative for your EDMs off the back of that. So that's kind of what's on our roadmap. That's kind of what's on our agenda. I mean, I'm hugely excited by it.
Yeah.
I've been kind of um, challenging my team to
Yeah.
really kind of get on board with it. And I
Mhm.
think, the thing that I keep reinforcing is it's not here to replace anyone. It's here to
Yeah.
free up their time from the low value work so they can focus on the high value work.
Totally. Human amplification is
Yeah.
like it's like, and that I think is really important to get across to our teams because it is quite confronting. It is moving at a incredibly overwhelming pace. I was a recent study that I was reading just around the CMO and the general manager of marketing and how overwhelming it does feel right now with all of this, new technology being thrown at us, the need to drive short-term results, but also look at the long-term lens, but then also self-educate and learn a whole new set of strategies and frameworks and tools for this next phase. So if we are at a senior level feeling that, you can only imagine what the teams are feeling. So I
Oh,
think
yeah.
it's more important than ever, to your point, of that, really helping them to understand that we're going to remove some of this mundane process. I mean, even I was at Salesforce recently just looking and explaining, how some of the media advertising buying, the creative journey, like the email automation, that kind of thing, of the stuff that the details that you just sometimes in your team sometimes just get stuck in. If you take a business that's got a strong CRM, a great marketing automation platform, maybe they've got 25 different workflows set up right now. You overlay AI to that and you say, okay, what are the 5 distinctions? What are the 5 things that we can fix here? And then have that efficiency done through AI agents in the system.
Yeah.
That's incredible because that's where our teams get bogged down. It's like all of that, they can come up with the thing, can come up with the idea, but the 25 other things on their agenda get
I agree.
prioritized. Then at the end of the month, it's like, oh, how did we go with that? Oh, it didn't get done, right?
Yeah.
So that to me is where I think, and I'm like you, get very excited about the efficiency that can be gained in that space.
Yeah. And I think, to anyone who is feeling overwhelmed by it all, I think, the trick is to turn off the noise and just sit down with yourself with a blank sheet of paper and go, what's the 1 or 2 things that it could really turn the dial on and change for me and my team? And then just kind of like go all in on that rather than because I'm the same. Like there's a million and one things out there that we could be doing and platforms, and there's
Yeah.
platforms coming out the bloody woodwork at the moment.
Yes.
We do this and everything's AI and da da da. And it's like, well,
Yeah.
actually, no, what's my agenda for the year? What are the 2 or 3 things that I want to do this year and just like focus on that?
Absolutely. I think that's awesome advice. Just yesterday, I was reading a little snippet from a book about particularly Steve Jobs, what he did so well at Apple. And, regardless of how you feel about him, was that every day he had 3 things that he needed to get done, and the rest was just noise. So it was just
Yeah.
like those 3 things need to happen. The rest is just noise and distraction, and I need to stay away from it. And I think more than ever in the world that we're moving to, and if we just bring that into AI specifically, doing what you've just said and just what are those couple of things that I can really focus on that are going to shift the needle. It's such a simple strategy, but it can make a huge difference. And just from a sheer, overwhelm point of view, it can actually recenter you to do what needs to be done.
Yeah.
So brilliant advice, Mr. Gavin. I totally agree and think that's a fantastic, fantastic point. So a couple of final questions for you, Gav, just around, leadership and the future and that kind of thing. It's a nice segue for us. What's the biggest challenge you're facing, I guess, as a marketing leader right now? And how are you tackling it? Just
Oh,
one.
yeah.
I know, right?
I think it probably is helping your team to navigate this new world,
Mhm.
and both being a coach and encouraging on the sort of how technology and AI can
Mhm.
specifically help, um, but also making sure that they're not feeling overwhelmed by it.
Mhm.
So I always sort of think about my job is to put the frameworks in place for my team to excel.
Yeah.
So I take on a lot of that sort of heavy lifting stuff up front. Around, like these are the things we're going to focus on this year, just so things that they don't get overwhelmed by it. So yeah, I think that's probably my key challenge at the moment is how do I encourage them and bring them on the journey on this without them feeling overwhelmed or freaked out.
Totally. And with such a fast moving space, I think it is getting in a lot of ways harder to do that regular check-in with, especially when you're managing large teams, is just how do you find those ways to just connect and, bring them on the journey. Is there anything specific for you that you find that just, managing a large team, managing a very busy calendar, multiple meetings, how do you find those moments to just reset with the team, bring them on the journey, update them? Is there anything, specific that you guys do in that space?
Yeah, I mean, literally straight after this, we've got our monthly mimosas.
Yep.
So oh, yeah, it's a every it's a Friday, so we're
Yep.
pretty quiet in our business on a Friday.
Yep.
It's the day that it's one Friday a month that I get all our team members, both in Adelaide and Sydney, to come into the office.
Yep.
We connect on Teams and we have mimosas for an hour and we just chat and we talk, and it's my chance to like really kind of share what's happening at a strategic level, either at Wes Health or within the MediAesthetics business,
Yeah.
my leadership team with my team and bring them on it. But it's also just a chance for everyone just to chat and, talk about, what's on their mind and things like that. So, some of those classic old school kind of monthly meetings, but how do you make them a bit more fun, a bit more different,
Totally. I like
interesting?
the monthly mimosas. Totally works.
Really, it's a lovely time.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome, Gabe. Well, look, I just want to say a massive thank you to you for being, so willing to pop on today and be generous with your insights and your strategies and the experiences that you're having in such a unique environment, managing those three brands and trying to achieve all of those, key results that I'm sure just keep coming. So, Gav, how can people, if people have got further questions for you, how can they reach out to you?
Yeah, I mean, LinkedIn's probably the best place to find me. I'm on there quite a lot, so yeah, just reach out on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Gab. Well, look, if you're a marketing leader and you're looking to succeed in crowded markets, this episode certainly has been a really fantastic one to really understand how you can differentiate, how you can drive creative performance, and then really some gold nuggets in and around what's happening with AI, where's it going, and what do you really need to be thinking about as a marketing leader. So once again, a massive thank you to Gavin for all of the insights. If you've got value from this episode, hit subscribe to the Black Box of Media and leave a review. It helps more marketers like you unlock the hidden strategies behind high performance media advertising. Let's keep the conversation going. If today's episode sparked new ideas, challenged the way you think, or inspired you in any way, I would love to hear from you. Hit me up on LinkedIn, send me a DM, and tell me what your biggest takeaway was. If you want more insider knowledge, you can listen and watch on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube for future episodes packed with actionable strategies. So until next time, keep pushing boundaries, keep testing, and most importantly, keep making media advertising work harder for you.